Who is the Buddha? What did the Buddha have to express on contentment, on this amazing truth that the Buddha shared called Tendel? Buddha nature. Would Rinpoche be so kind as to share with us what we are to understand from the statement that all sentient beings possess the Buddha nature, shunyata, and in English, emptiness? Is there a shortcut to nirvana? When Doctor is sharing this, what comes to mind is a quote that Jitan Milarepa is supposed to have said. He said, what is your religion? And he said, my religion is to live and die without regret. And I was like, it's easy to sort of convince yourself to live without regret, but to die without regret, it's another question altogether. Doctor, any other milestones? Because I read this one incident that Doctor had in a war zone somewhere in the Middle East, where you were a bit biased with the army personnel there, right. And how, you know, an episode with him, an exchange of conversation or a moment that you spend with him, and how that affected you as well. And I feel it's beneficial for our viewers if we could hear about that experience from Doctor, because many a times we are so locked up with labels and uniforms and borders and nationalities that we tend to not see the human being behind that.
Yes, yeah, I'm happy to share that. It was in one of my first prison visits working with the International Committee of the Red Cross. One of the tasks of the Red Cross is to visit war prisoners in war zones. So I was in the Middle East and I was visiting a military prison. And it was a military prison in the middle of the desert, very hot. And I had spent the whole morning having one-to-one interviews with the detainees, because the Red Cross has this privilege that they are allowed to have what is called interview without witness, so that they can speak frankly without having some guards or soldiers listening in. And so they were sharing their stories, and there were terrible stories of, you know, abuse and torture, and, you know, really terrible stories. The youngest prisoner was about 15 and the eldest was in his late 70s. Nice. So it was very sort of a heavy experience, and the prison cells are very smelly and they are very dark places, and you feel it's a horrible atmosphere, you know. And then after having spent the whole morning in this prison cell, I went out to rest and, you know, breathe some fresh air. And a young soldier came up to me and started speaking with me. Now, the whole morning I heard from the prisoners how the soldiers were abusing the prisoners and so on. So when this young man came up to me, I felt very reluctant even to, you know, engage with him. But he was really sort of insisting. He wanted to speak with me. And I was a bit surprised, you know. And because, to be frank, what I saw was a military uniform, a machine gun, you know, and for me it was like the image of the, you know, of the abuser, of the, you know, of the oppressor, of, you know, so the bad guy, right? And so I was reluctant to engage with him. But he continued speaking with me, and at one point he told me, "Do you think I'm an evil person?" And then I was quite shocked, you know, because I realized that actually, yes, I thought he was an evil person, but I didn't know this man, young man. Then I asked him, "How old are you?" And he said, "I'm 22. And that's younger than my own son was at that time. Nice. So I thought, oh my God, this could be my son, you know. And obviously, when you're in a country at war, you don't choose whether you want to become a military or not. It's just, you know, they take you and that's it. They draft you and you have to become a soldier and you cannot have no choice. And it was, so it started, you know, I felt a shift inwardly. I thought, I have to open up and listen. And then he started telling me, well, actually, you know, he's finished his studies. He would like to become a social worker. Back home, he's working with youth. And he was a really nice young man, you know. And I had not been able to see that because I had been blinded by the label, by the uniform, by my mind projection of who he is, rather than seeing the real person. And that was very humbling because at that time I've been already a practicing Buddhist for many years. I was already, you know, ordained Dharma teacher, and I realized it's easy to preach, you know, open your mind, overcome your prejudices, and so on. But in the situation, I was not able to do it. Yes. So, you know, it was a very humbling experience. And I thought, that's a very deep lesson, you know. Yes. I cannot, when I meet someone, just keep with the outer appearance or the title or the name or the religion or the, you know, whatever, the, you know, the form, but look beyond that to the true being, you know. So how can I pretend that I want to awaken the Buddha nature in myself if I'm not able to see it in the person I'm speaking with?
Yes, that's beautiful, Doctor. And I mean, I got to get a taste of what Doctor must, what the transformative experience must have been for Doctor, and I hope the audience as well can draw from Doctor's experience, because so many a times, I mean, we are so locked up. We look at parents and we don't see a woman or a man behind it. We tend to see our dad, mom, labels, and you know, we can't really connect with people. And thank you, Doctor, for that. Any other milestone that Doctor, anything that comes to mind that Doctor would like to share?